for joining. I know it's a small group. Hopefully some other people will join as we go through the presentation. I do have just a couple of Grotto notes for everybody. I'm sure some of you've noticed we've been having a little bit of trouble with the website. The website has been having some intermittent issues and it's been going down. So we have been working on fixing it and trying to remedy some of the problems we're having, such as fixing the submittal for trips and other information like that. We are looking for a webmaster to possibly help us out. So if anybody has any experience with WordPress and wants to help out with working on the website, reach out to us and let us know. Another position we're looking to hopefully fill is we're going to start a treasurer position for the Bighorn Horse Thief Survey to help manage the funds for that project. That would be, working with Will and other people on the project for allocating funds for purchasing and replenishing gear that gets used during the survey projects and managing the budget for the project. We are thinking that this could transition into a full-on treasurer position with the Grotto if Mike chooses to retire from that position in the future. So there'd be an opportunity there to join the leadership group with the Grotto. And then that's it for notes that I have. Tonight, we're going to be having a presentation, orientation to cave survey. And then Alex Nancaro is going to be giving a presentation for the cave and karst management plan for the Billings Field Office, specifically the Pryor Mountains. Did you get that right, Ryan? Alex?
Yep, that's all right. Yep, thanks.
Perfect. Okay, so orientation to cave survey. So I've put this presentation together just to discuss the basics of cave survey for the Grotto. As we have more people show up on the Bighorn Horse Thief project, we figured it would be a good chance to let people have an idea of what they're getting into, just so they have a knowledge base when they do show up on the project, so they're not just starting from square one. So here on this cover page, you can see all the different places that we survey. Over here on the left, sometimes we survey when we're hanging from ropes. On the top, you can see Savannah surveying through a crawlway. On the bottom, Brian is in a river passage that is not very big, trying to keep his book clean. And then over here on the right, surveying in really dusty, tight conditions in Horse Thief Cave. So everything we're going to talk about tonight can be used in whatever cave you're in to help make a map and learn how to survey.
Carl,
so what are
the little stop sharing or hide? Can you hit hide on that? Thank you.
Perfect. All right, so what are cave maps? So cave maps are documents that we produce to help navigate and explore cave systems. Here you can see a map produced by Hans Bodenhammer. We're looking at what's called the plan view in this orientation. So this is kind of top down. So if you're in a helicopter looking at the top of the cave, that is what the plan view is. The other view you'll see in cave maps is the profile view. So here is be like if you sliced the cave in half and took a cross section of it. This is what the profile view is. You can see that we add names onto maps to help with navigating the spaces, also call out important elevations, details of rocks, overlaying passages, locations of the entrance, and other important items. Why survey? So we make these maps mostly just for our own use. We do distribute them to agencies, but honestly, the main reason is just because we want to explore these caves and document them for the grottos and other cavers' use. So a lot of these caves have never been surveyed before. The maps that we produce are useful for navigating underground to get to certain areas, communicating information to others, such as trying to point out where to go in a cave to somebody, or if there's a rescue, you can point out a location of where a rescuer needs to go. Sometimes we're the very first humans to explore these places, and so we should document it. Over here, you can see on the right, this is actually the first cave that me and Will explored Virgin Passage in. You can see we started walking down the passage and realized that there was no other footsteps and it was just ours. So you can have some really cool experiences like that. And to find new unexplored areas underground and in existing caves, you have to know what's already been explored. So documenting and creating maps is important for that as well. History of cave survey. So I'm sure you've seen maps of existing caves of varying degrees of detail. So cavers have been trying to map and document caves for a long time. And they've used many different methods. So over here on the left-hand side, we have a Brunton sighting compass. This is used for taking an azimuth reading. Here in the center, a little bit more modern, this is a Sunto tandem. Here you can see the sighting compass on the bottom part of it. And then on the top section of it, we see now that there's an inclinometer used for taking inclination readings. A lot of the times with really old cave maps, you won't necessarily see accurate profiles because they were doing just a lot of compass sightings and didn't necessarily take inclinations or draw the detailed plan views. Then on the right-hand side, we have a measuring tape. So before we had lasers that you could just shoot across the passageway, they would actually stretch out a measuring tape from one station to another and just take an analog reading using the measuring tape. Here we can see kind of some early maps. This was probably produced in the 60s. These are more kind of sketches. They did take measurements, but they don't necessarily call out much detail in the maps. They have really soft, rounded edges. They weren't drawing in rocks or anything like that, describing slopes on the surface. Same thing with the profile view, very soft edges. They did take measurements, but they might have not been held to the same standard that we hold ourselves today. Then kind of in, 90s, 80s, 90s periods, they started using, better instruments for taking measurements, and cavers started holding themselves to higher standards. So here, there's a lot more information about the cave. There's a legend on it. They started using a lot of floor detail, describing rocks, calling out heights. You can see they called out survey locations, cross sections. In the profile view, they give more detail, sharper edges, showing of pits and ledges. And then that kind of brings us to modern day cartography, where we're kind of at our current standard that we hold ourselves to, where we have more modern instruments such as the Disto-X, and we use computers to help do the cartography more accurately. So we tend to spend a lot more time on getting the correct measurements in the cave, checking the measurements, making sure they're correct, recording a lot of information and passage detail in our notes, and then bringing it back and applying all of that in the computer to make a very detailed map. You can see lots of ledges, here's stream passages being called out, lots of descriptions. In the profile view, there's a lot more detail. There's the terrain of the surface above. That could also be, surveyed. If there's two entrances to the cave, they can check the measurements using that. And just showing a lot more detail. So this brings us to the current best survey instruments that we have for making these maps. What you're going to see when you go on survey trips is most likely you're going to see a custom Disto X unit, which is this top unit up here, or a brick. And this is the Brick 5, which is a specific made custom survey instrument. And then over here on the right, you'll see that we still use sketch paper. You can do what's called a digital survey, where you put all of this information into a tablet and draw in the tablet in the cave. However, the cave is a very hostile environment. It's very dirty, sometimes wet. There's impacts that can happen. And so a lot of the times we still use paper just because it's very reliable. And we can take just as detailed notes on the paper as you would on a tablet. Some cases, a tablet can get higher details by taking multiple floor shots and wall shots, things like that. But for what we're doing in Horse Thief and Bighorn, currently paper is fine, and we're able to create a very high quality map from that. So how survey works. So when we survey a cave, we will take measurements from points that we can see that are line of sight from each other. So essentially, when we have one point, we can directly see all the way across the cave to another point. So a clear line of sight. And you will, at the entrance of the cave, you will have a starting station. And then you will have somebody go into the cave as far as they can, and with a clear line of sight, and set another station. Then we're going to take 3 measurements between those stations. We're going to take a distance measurement, an azimuth, which is like a compass measurement, so northwest, southeast, and then inclination, which is the up or down. So here's another image of what it kind of looks like when we're taking those measurements. So here we have a station down at the bottom and a station up top. There's a clear line of sight between the two. These guys are using a tape measure. So they are stretched out the tape measure and they're measuring the distance. Then they will take and they will measure the azimuth. So the northwest, east-south measurement, and then take the inclination. So, here in this passage, this inclination maybe looks like 30 degrees, and it's going to be in the uphill direction if they're headed into the cave. Recording of data. So after we've taken these measurements, we're going to record them in our book. So there's kind of the 3 main areas that you'll be working in when you're sketching and recording data. You have the written data, which is all the numbers that you collect. So here on the left-hand side, you can see this different station callouts. In this case, it's DW15 to DW16. Those are 2 stations. Then we have the distance measurements. Looks like this one is 14.738. And then the azimuth, which is that compass reading, 245.1 degrees. And then the inclination, which is positive 2.2. And then below, you'll have the corresponding check shots, or what we call the back sights, so we have 2 measurements and we can check them to see if they're accurate enough. If you're not taking an accurate measurement, you'll see that there's a discrepancy between the 2. And for what we're doing at Horse Thief and Bighorn Cave, we're looking to get within 2 degrees of agreement. Here we have the left, right, up, down, which we'll talk about in a different section. And then that's all of the information that's recorded. Also, depending on the area you're in, you can make notes for the cartographer later on to explain kind of what's at those survey stations. Then we have the plan view of the notebook, which is where you'll actually draw those measurements in to scale and then draw the cave passage around those measurements. Then the next page is the profile view, which is where you'll draw those same measurements, but then you'll draw in that profile view setting, or, if you cut the cave in half. And then the final section for making a cave map is cartography. So after you collect all of this information, you'll bring it out of the cave, and then you'll give it to a cartographer, or yourself in a computer, and you will import all of the data into a cave software program, and it will morph and stretch the map to make it as accurate to your written data as possible, and then overlay all your pages on top of it so that you can get an accurate plan view or profile view to then start redrawing over top of it on the computer to make a nice clear map. So those are all kind of the general ideas of surveying, and now we're going to go into higher level detail about each one of those sections. So if you want to survey a cave, what do you need? You're going to need a minimum of 2 people. You'll need some device for measuring distance, azimuth, and inclination. They don't all have to be the same device, but you have to be able to take those measurements in the cave. You need a sketchbook to be able to write down all that information. You'll need a cave compass, which is a ruler and protractor, to be able to draw all of the measurements in your sketchbook. You'll need supplies for marking stations, and then you'll need to know how to use basic trigonometry to adjust for the inclination shots. So when surveying a cave, there's 2 main measurement positions. They are referred to as the front sight and the back sight. These are the data collector positions, so they will be actually taking the measurement shots and relaying the information to the sketcher who is writing them down. Here you can see a little image of kind of what it's like to take those shots. So here we have somebody on L57, which is going to be referred to as the front sight because they're looking ahead in the passage and taking a shot. And then we have the other position at L58, and they're referred to as the back sight because they're shooting back towards the front sight. You'll shoot at each other's stations and take those measurements and then compare them to each other to make sure that you guys are actually shooting the correct stations and recording the correct information. All right, so back sight. So this is even a more detailed view about what those positions do. So the back sight is the person who is in the front, and they will essentially determine the survey route through the cave. So they will be up in front of the passage, and they'll be determining what direction you're moving through the cave, what passages you're going down. And they will be setting the survey stations that you'll be shooting to for taking the measurements. They will also be taking the back sights, so looking backwards down the passage. And then they will be calling out the left, right, up, down to the surveyor when that's needed. And we'll talk about that in another section. So some of the tools that they may carry is they're going to have some way to take measurements. In this case, they're going to have a Disto-X. And then they will have some method of marking the stations. In the Bighorn Horse Thief Survey, we have these great markers that we've been setting stations with. So here, this top one is a steel survey tag with the station stamped into it. Below, we have a vinyl tag with the station written on it. Those have been working out extremely well. They're very permanent, so they can be checked if needed. And people don't move them around or accidentally kick them off ledges. However, if you go to other cave surveys, say you're going really far into the mountains, and you can only take a little bit of supplies, then you may only use whiteout for marking the rock, or you could just put a piece of flagging over top of the area you're taking the station to and mark it with a Sharpie. The front sight is the person shooting forward into the cave, And usually their only job is to take the front sight measurement. So this means that sometimes they'll have a little bit of extra time. So if you're somebody who's wanting to, practice the sketching part of it, this is a great position because you only really have one job to do. You have to take one measurement, relay it to the sketcher, and then you kind of sit around for a little bit while the sketcher's filling in the data and the back sight is looking for the next station to set. Then you have the sketcher. So the sketcher records all of the trip information as you enter the cave and start a survey trip. They record all of the data that's given to them. So all of the numbers that come in, they will record all of that data. They will be the one who determines if the measurements don't agree. So, if there's a bad measurement that comes in, they'll say, hey, you guys aren't taking the measurements correctly. Can you please retry, recalibrate the instruments if needed, or try to do a different shot so that you agree on the two shots. They will draw the plan view, the profile, and the cross sections. And then most of the time, they're the leader of the survey. So they kind of, keep everybody on track. Are kind of the leader in terms of, starting and finishing and making sure everybody, is having fun and using instruments properly, things like that. So the Disto-X survey instrument. So this instrument, which is used by cavers all across the world, is a Disto survey instrument created by Leica that has been modified with a custom board made by a caver in, I think, Switzerland. I could be wrong on that. But due to that, they are limited supplies and they cost a lot of money. Typically to go buy one of these you're going to be buying it from another caver, probably be $800 to $1,000, just because it's very difficult to find this exact model of Disto, and then can be difficult to find the boards, and then you have to make friends with somebody to then put the board inside of your Disto and finish modifying it. This is the screen once you turn on the Disto and take a measurement. The measurement button is in the center. It's just a simple press to take the measurement. And then your information for the survey will be these three numbers. So this lower one is the distance. This upper one is going to be the inclination. You can see here that this is a negative measurement. So it's negative 25 degrees, so it's pointed downhill. And then here we have the azimuth, which is 263.6 degrees. There's also the battery. That's important. You don't want to run out of battery on a survey. If it starts getting low on battery, you can always try to put it in your cave suit and warm it back up. Up here in the very top right-hand corner, that's not marked. That's the number of shots taken. So there is a history or memory that you can access to reference shots in the past. There's a couple of little indicators here on the top left. In this case, this little arrow, if you see it, that's called a backsight indicator. So this is for the backsight position, so shooting backwards in the cave. So I said this was a negative inclination. It's actually, in this shot in particular, it's a positive inclination because it's in backsight mode. You have the measurement location indicator. You can change the device to take the measurement at certain points. So you could have it take it right at the front, at the quarter 20 screw in the center, or at the very back of the instrument. We always take the measurement at the back of the instrument so you can butt it up right against the survey station. So here you can see that line down there showing you that it's taking the measurement at the back. All right. So how does a survey work? First, you're going to set your first station. Then the front sight person can use their Disto to try to help set the next station. And by doing that, they can shoot their laser down the passage as far as they can or to what makes a reasonable station. and make sure that you can actually take that measurement. I've seen instances where people run up ahead to set this next station, and they've never checked to make sure they can actually make that shot. They've set a station and then tried to take the shot and haven't been able to, and we've had to reset the station. So it's typically good practice to try to shine your laser down passage, make sure that you can actually take that shot. So then point will come up here, mark this next station. Then the front sight and point will take the measurements that they need, those 3 measurements. They'll check them. They'll call out the measurements to the sketcher. This can depend on the sketcher, but like my preference is that you say the numbers back to me in the order that they appear in my book. So that's distance, azimuth, inclination. In this case, we only have 26.2 feet, 282.6 degrees, negative 12.5 degrees. Then the point is going to call out their measurements, call those out. Then the surveyor will confirm that those measurements agreed. In this case, they did, so they're going to say good. And then the point is going to call out the L rods, or left, right, up, down. The L rods are a cross section of the passage at a survey point, looking down passage 90 degrees from the shot. So you have left, right. Those are the measurements to the wall, or a good approximation of the wall. Sometimes there's going to be rocks that may obscure your vision of the wall or something, but you're trying to see where the actual walls of the cave are. So you'd look to the left, you can take a measurement, or if your surveyor is okay with it, you can estimate, depending on the level of survey you're trying to get, left and right. And then you're going to look towards the ceiling of the passage, measure that distance, and then the floor. Typically we put these survey stations on rocks or ledges. So there's going to be some distance to the floor, whether it's a foot or 6 inches. If it's directly on the floor or up against the side of the passage, that measurement would be 0. And then once again, this is a surveyor's preference when you're surveying with them, but I like them just being called out in the order that they appear in the books. So somebody can easily just say the left, right, up, down, and I can write those down super quick and efficient. Then after that, you're going to move on to the next station and continue surveying. Sketching views. We kind of already talked about this a little bit, but you have the plan view, which is the top-down view if you're in a helicopter looking down at the cave. Profile view, which is looking from the side, and then cross sections, which is kind of what that left, right, up, down that we described is. So here you can see the call out for that cross section. So it's looking down passage and what that looks like. So on to the sketching portion. So the sketcher is probably the most difficult position for surveying, and requires, taking some practice before you do it for the first time on an actual survey project. But, with the sketcher, you're going to be recording all of the distances and angles in your sketchbook, and then drawing in detail. We're going to talk about exactly how to use a cave compass a little bit further, but here I just kind of want to talk about details. So, when we're recording details, we want to record everything that best describes the cave. So if you were going to be walking through the cave, looking at this map, what would be some things that point out to you? Looking from a profile view, the biggest thing I can see is there's a huge rock in the ceiling. So, I went ahead and drew a rock up top. And then here at the edge of this drop, there's kind of a nice big pointy rock sticking out. So you drew in a rock on the floor of the passage. Then looking on the plan view, you can see some little ledge markers to show that there's a drop here. There's some small debris on the ground. So you draw in some of the small rocks that you're going to see. And then finally, I like to draw on the rigging. So here you can see that we have a traverse bolt and then the bolts for a Y hang. And so I just drew in exactly what that's going to look like. That's really useful for the person coming behind you if they're trying to determine how much rope and rigging gear they should bring. They can go look at your map and see exactly where all the ropes are and the approximate lengths that they'll need. Here are kind of some of the approximate details that you could put in a cave passage. There's a lot of stuff that describes kind of the geometry of the cave. So ledges and drops, there's pits and domes, slopes, ceiling channels. There's speleothems, so any of the pretty delicate stuff you're going to see in a cave, you can draw and document that. So you can use it for future monitoring projects, or if somebody's trying to go visit a pretty part of the cave, they can look at your map and see exactly where all of the speleothems are. There's some other information, geology of the cave that can be used for finding future passages, recording more information. You can draw in water, the flow, direction of water, pools, sumps, things like that. Some descriptions of the passage height, depths, things that are leads, things that were maybe there was continuing passage, but nobody could fit down it. The actual survey stations itself, and then biology, other things like that, and then terminations that you ran into. The cave passage was going really good, and then it ended, and it might be good to be like, oh, it's just plugged with sediment. So somebody maybe could go and dig there to see if they could get past the sediment to continuing passage on the other side. How to use a cave compass. So here is a cave compass. It's specifically meant for caving. And essentially what it is a ruler with a protractor on it, and then some trigonometric tables on the side. This part in the center rotates and has all of the degrees called out, such as a compass rose. So when you're first using this, you would take your shot and you get your measurement. In this case, it's 310 degrees. And so you would rotate this section over to one of the horizontal tick marks. You're then going to place that on your page, and you're going to rotate the whole device so that the north arrow faces the north on your page. In this case, the north is up. Then you're going to mark out where your survey station is. So in this case, you can slide it over to wherever you had marked the survey station, A0. I'm just going to put it on this 4 tick mark over here. And then you can use your pencil and you can draw in your line. So in this case, our shot was 24 feet. The inclination was 0. And so you counted up the tick marks. This is a scale of 1 to 20. So here we have 10 feet, 20 feet, 4 feet. Boom. And then you can draw your line in and mark your next survey station. Line drawn in. And then you have your scaled line on your page. Well, what if your survey shot is not perfectly level? So if you have an inclination on your shot, you need to account for it on the plan view. If you think of the profile view, which is just the cut in half section, you're going to see that the hypotenuse on this triangle is what we're actually drawing in the plan view. So you don't have to account for the shortening of the line. However, when you're in the plan view, you need to account for the shortening of the line because you're going to be drawing the adjacent leg. So we have to look at our angle and do some basic math and figure out what this new distance is on this adjacent line. Over here on the left-hand side of your cave compass and on the right-hand side for larger measurements, there's actually a little table because you'll pretty much be doing this every single shot. And marked down on the table on this left column, you see that there are some distances in increments of 5. And then the top row, there are angles in increments of 5. You can see that, the shorter the angle, smaller the angle is, the less it affects it. And the greater the angle is, the more that it affects it. We're drawing stuff with pencils, so we're not going to be able to get super accurate on the change in the line, but you should be able to get within a couple of feet just by using the tables in the cave. So here we'll go ahead and we'll do another example. So this one, the inclination is 45 degrees. So you're going to put your cave compass at 310 degrees north on the page. Using the azimuth and orientating the cave compass, the north doesn't change if you have an inclination. It's just going to be on that length that we draw. So orientated that up there. And then we went and we looked at our table to see what we're close to. So we got 24 feet, or that's close to 25 feet. So we're going to choose that one. And we're going to work our way over. We see 45 right there. Then it's calling out 18. That's good enough for in the cave. So you're going to come over on your cave compass, you're going to lay it down, and you're going to draw your 18 feet. So that is a correction for your shot that's 24 feet at 45 degrees. Cover page. So on the front of all of your survey books, you're going to have a page for cover page information. This is an essential part of surveying and also has a lot of important information that you're going to be referencing when you're out of the cave. So this is a big thing on larger projects. Smaller projects, of course, this is also important information, but it becomes even more important when you start having really large projects for recording and organizing data. Just as an example, the Bighorn Horse Thief Project, we've been doing it for about 4 years now. We have 100 trips worth of information. So, you can see here, this is 11 pages. Some of the trips have like 25 pages. So, we have like 1,000 pieces of paper that may need to be referenced for data if something happens to the electronic data. So here, you have description of what cave you're in, the area of the cave, the location. The date is really important for trying to match up different pages of information. Everybody who was on that trip and what position they did. The time in the cave, the time out of the cave. I did a bad job on this one, I guess, of not saying when I left the cave. What type of instrument was used, the identifications for each one of the instruments, so you can check the calibration. What surveys you started off on. This one, we were continuing existing survey. Some notes about the survey, and then the new distance and how many survey shots you took. So this is really important information. It's just as important as the data that you collect in the cave, because if you don't have any of the information about when this information was taken and where the information was taken, then the data, it doesn't tell you anything. Okay. How can I practice? So, the big thing is come on a survey trip, come join us up at Bighorn Horse Thief. Understand that, some people can't make that long of a drive, or maybe, don't want to hang out with a lot of people. Well, there's other ways to practice. You can go and you can just get a notebook, a simple compass, a protractor, tape measure, and you can start making your own sketch maps and kind of learning about the measurements and how they relate to everything. Here on the right-hand side, you'll see kind of some of the progression of my own maps that I've made. When I first started surveying, I didn't have any of the survey equipment. I just used a 25-foot tape measure and a basic compass. And this is a bad map. I was just trying to estimate the inclination. but it got me thinking about the measurements and, what measurements you need to take for surveying a cave and why they're important. So just practicing it, getting interested in it. Eventually, I got some better equipment. I got a Suunto tandem and a laser rangefinder. Me and Will went out and surveyed just a little tiny cave. I think this one was 78 feet long. But he used it as practice. We practiced taking measurements, drawing the floor detail, and then practiced inputting the information, seeing what it looks like, and using cave software to help make a map. And then finally, I was able to get a Disto-X after I realized that I wanted to continue doing this for a long time. So I made the investment. And then, started, wandering around, finding new caves and starting to survey them the best I could. Some other things that I did alongside this was I surveyed my house. Went out and you can survey canyons. That's kind of like a cave. It just doesn't have a roof on it. And then there's plenty of additional books that you can read on cave survey, from the NSS that will help describe these practices in better detail. The future of cave survey. So we have our current standard using, Disto-X and either a survey book or a tablet. But there's also been some examples of LiDAR that's been used. There's been a little bit of LiDAR done in Horse Thief Cave, and if you search through the Grotto YouTube page, you'll be able to find a video of that. You can see here it actually does a pretty good job. Some issues with LiDAR is it doesn't describe the floor detail really well, so you don't know what exactly is on the floor, where the speleothems are, what the rocks look like. It also can't see around corners as well as a human can, so if there's hidden passages or large rocks in the way, it doesn't pick up details behind there. And then also it's difficult and the equipment's still pretty delicate. So it's really difficult to get the instrument to take the shots between stations, especially if you're in a vertical passage or really difficult terrain or really tight terrain. And if you're in really dusty environments or like in lots of water, you can damage the device just by being in the cave environment. And that's all I had. Does anybody have any questions? If not, I think we can roll into Alex's presentation, and then we can kind of have a little roundtable at the end.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, thanks for having me, everyone. I am Alex Nancaro, work for the BLM Billings Field Office. Just give me a second here to share my screen.
Perfect.
All right. So, I'm Alex Nancaro. I work for the Billings Field Office, and I'm an outdoor recreation planner. I'm also the Cave and Karst lead for my office. I unfortunately don't only work on cave stuff. I have some other responsibilities too, but I enjoy caving, and as y'all know, it's pretty niche. A niche subject, and so I was happy that they let me take on that role in the office. So just to kind of give you an idea of where I work and kind of what I'm going to be talking about is located. So the Billings Field Office is in this red square here. For stuff on the surface, for everything not cave related, I take everything north of the Yellowstone River here. So if you're familiar with the Billings area, places like Acton Recreation Area, Shepherd on Rec area, and so on. But when I'm doing cave stuff, I get to go down. Most of our caves are down here in the Priors. So that's where I get to go have fun in caves. Just to give you an idea of kind of some of the stuff we're working on right now. Just here in the next week, I'm going to be going up to Mystery Cave with our archaeologist. He's new here, and I started my job about a little over a year and a half ago in November of 2023. But he wanted to go up there, and he found some information in his files about some cultural artifacts in the cave, and so he wants to go look for that stuff. Then pretty soon I'm also going to be going back to Mystery Cave. I've got a couple interns that work under me, and we're working with the Montana Natural Heritage Program and Fish, Wildlife, and Parks to do some bat surveys there at Mystery Cave. And then something I'm pretty excited about, in July, I'm going to be taking the BLM Montana Dakota's state director. I'm going to take her caving with some other people as well. But I've found that it's pretty good to get leadership out into caves. That way they can see kind of what we're dealing with and why we should care about the cave resources. I did that with one of my bosses last year, and she went from, being terrified of the idea of going into a cave to thinking it's awesome. So I think if we get more leadership on board, then that'll help us out with protecting cave environments. Then a few months ago, I applied for some funding from the National BLM Cave Specialist, and was awarded $1,000 to update some of the signage we have at a few of our caves. Some of them are a little out of date, especially because we found white nose syndrome in 2023 in Mystery Cave. So what I want to do is kind of put some kind of cave safety basic stuff on the sign, as well as information about white nose syndrome and how people can decontaminate their gear. And then I'm also hoping to do some photo monitoring at a few of the caves that the Big Fork High School Cave Club initiated a few years back. And then kind of the main thing I'm here to talk with you about is the cave and karst management plan. So part of our field office resource management plan said that we would make a cave and karst management plan. And so that's over the course of the last year or so, I've been putting this plan together here. So some of the stuff that's in the plan, we've got just kind of the background information on caves of the Pryor Mountain and some of the resources that you might find inside of them. Also, kind of general just safety and best practices, info about white nose and decontamination procedures. One thing that I'm excited about is reopening Mystery Cave. We can't just fully open it, but what we'd like to do is do some guided tours. That way we could at least still get people in there. I'm not sure how familiar some of you are with Mystery Cave, but it was closed a few years back, and no recreation trips really have been allowed in the last several years, only the bat surveys. So I was able to talk with our wildlife biologists, and we kind of came to an agreement on what we thought would be best, especially considering white nose. PD and white nose came into the cave even after rec trips had not been allowed for a while. And then, some information on monitoring and restoration work, and then just kind of other management goals and decisions. So to kind of give you an idea of where we're at with the cave plan, it has to go through something called NEPA, or the National Environmental Policy Act. And where we're at now is I've developed the plan and made an environmental assessment on it. So with an environmental assessment, or an EA, what happens is we have a interdisciplinary team of recreation specialists and grazing specialists, biologists, and so on. And everyone looks at those documents to see how their resources might be affected. So we put together that team, and everyone read through the plan and the EA and provided feedback. After that, I made some changes to the plan to to help mitigate issues for certain resources, and then sent it out for some targeted scoping with some interested organizations. So the Grotto, the Big Fork High School Cave Club, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, the Natural Heritage Program. We also worked with the tribes in the area, and then the Forest Service. So some of those organizations provided feedback, and then right now what I'm doing is working on addressing that feedback that we got from those organizations. And then here in the next month or two, I'm hoping to be able to go out to public comment. So when we do that, we'll publish the final documents online, and then anyone can go in and provide feedback on the cave plan. So if you would like to get involved in it, like I said, we're not quite at the public comment period yet, but when that becomes an option, or if you just want to do it now, this e-planning page is live right now. So if you go to eplanning.blm.gov or on Google, you can just search for e-planning. And then on e-planning, search for the Billings Field Office Cave and Karst Management Plan, and it'll take you to this page here on the right. And you can click this link here that says documents, and that's where you can review the draft management plan and the EA. And if there are any big updates, or rather minor updates, I'll put them in this what's new thing over here, just so you can kind of keep up with what's going on with it. So that was just a kind of a quick and dirty version of what we've got going on in the Billings Field Office. If you are interested in looking at the updated management plan and EA when that comes out, just send me an email. My email's right there on the screen. But yeah, if anyone has any questions or comments, I'd be happy to chat with y'all. I'm also enjoy caving, so if anyone has ideas for projects down in the Pryor Mountains, then I'd be happy to talk about those with you as well.
You mentioned photo monitoring. That was one of your kind of projects.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
You mentioned the photo monitoring kind of that the Big Fork Cave Club had done.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious on, I know that they had done some kind of GIS maps, I think, where that data was being stored. Are you continuing that process by using GIS maps to organize data and stuff?
Yeah, so they made what they called e-caves, which if you want, I can send you a link to some of those, and then if people in the Grotto are interested, they can look at those. I don't believe I actually have access to those. I think Hans is the one that has access to those. Although there are ways for the public to provide their own photos for the photo monitoring. So that's what I want to continue, though, is continue those projects that they started.
And so to use that to see kind of by, allowing recreational trips in Mystery Cave, you're then able to document the impact that it might have, in coming years and things like that. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So, we could try to monitor changes from that. And, I should have mentioned this before, but with the Mystery Cave guided tours, we're going to limit those to the summer season. So June 1st through October 14th is the seasonal closure that we have for to protect bats for hibernation and all that. So what the plan is to have up to 4 trips per month during that window. And, at this point, well, it talks about this in the plan, but either the BLM or, trusted or people from trusted organizations could guide some of those trips. So, I think I kind of went off on a tangent there, but yeah, that's something I'm excited about.
Yes. And so if somebody was interested in, going on a trip, they would fill out the correct permit application and they would probably go with somebody from the BLM first.
Yeah. So once we're totally done with the NEPA on this, what I'll do is I'll add a section on our website about caves and in particular about guided trips for Mystery Cave. And then, we'll have instructions on there for how to go about doing that. To start, it'll probably be BLM personnel, but then, really I'm at this point, I would probably be the only person that could do the trips in the BLM. So I'd be happy to work with you all to get some guides to be able to go in there if that was an interest of the group.
Thanks. And then you also talked about signage. Are the signs you're replacing the kind of those old white nose syndrome signs that were bolted in some of the entrances?
Correct. Yeah, those.
Thanks.
So I want to, since it's obviously changed and we have white nose now, it's important to try not to spread that to other caves, and so that way folks can know how to decon their gear and all that. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for presenting on that. I know there's definitely some people who are interested in going to Mystery Cave, and I think a couple of us helped out with the Big Fork Cave Club when they were doing the initial monitoring. So it'd be really cool to get back in there in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I appreciate all the work that the Grotto's done. I've seen your guys' name on all sorts of stuff as well. So it's always good to work with groups like yours. So, if there aren't any other questions, I'll still hang out in here. But thanks again for having me, guys.
Great. Thank you, Alex. I guess, does anybody else have anything they want to discuss or bring up?
Yeah, hey, Carl. Brad Milligan. I'm new to this. I haven't really done anything with you guys, but I'm wondering, how do I get involved with doing some of this stuff? Like you mentioned some upcoming Bighorn horse thief stuff. How would I get started on that?
So for the Bighorn horse thief stuff, Will, do you want to talk about
Yep.
the process for that?
So basically, all you need to do is get on our email list. That will get you the main emails for just the project. The website is currently up, and there's a project page on there. So that gets you the main signups for like our project weekends, which we have one this weekend, and then we have our next official one is in August. We may do one kind of in July. I'm working with the Natural Trap people to see what we can do around there. And then our day-to-day chatter is on a messenger program called Telegram. There's a link inside of there, and that's kind of where just of our more casual and day-to-day conversations that go off on tangents happen over there on our Telegram platform.
Gotcha. Too late to get in on this weekend just to kind of shadow?
This weekend, we definitely can use some helpers. So we got, it sounds like we'll be doing kind of a half day on Friday, kind of starting around like 1 or 2 p.m. And then if we have people on all the way to Sunday up there, we'll be doing either a short day Sunday or kind of calling it early on Sunday. We have some people that have some longer travel distances, and it's a smaller weekend, so we'll see kind of how we're feeling on Sunday. But Saturday will be a big day in Horse Thief.
Okay. I work through Saturday morning, so I'll just sit this one and hopefully make the next. But thanks.
Yeah, if you get on that email list, that's the main critical one there.
Great. Appreciate it.
Well, if nobody has anything else,
Alex, just go ahead and if you email us again when that happens, we'll make sure to get that out in our communities there. I saw the
Okay.
message come up and go away.
Yeah. All right. That sounds good.
Awesome.
great. Well, yeah, 5 minutes over. Thanks everybody for joining. I kind of want to start doing a couple more of these, more since we haven't had our annual grotto meeting. I still want people to know that we're active. So I think I'm going to set up maybe another one on kind of intro to vertical caving, possibly for another month or two out. So I guess if you have any ideas of topics you want to discuss or are interested in, shoot me an email and we'll try to come up with another one of these kind of short intro meetings. So,
yes, if any of you
thanks, everyone.
are even interested in it, like I would love one on this, please let us know, because then we can go find somebody that would be willing to. So we will try to gauge these around what people want. So
I have a quick question. Where will the recording for this be available, this meeting? And I guess all future,
I'll be posting these to the Grotto webpage, or not the Grotto webpage, the Grotto YouTube channel. I'm already delinquent on one, and I'll probably be delinquent on this one for like a week. I just got to get through this project weekend, and then probably after that I'll get it up. Although this one's a pretty clean recording, I'll probably get it up pretty quick. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, definitely have some people that weren't able to make it but are interested in hearing about this.
Yep.
Great. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for calling in and have a good rest of your week. Bye.
Thanks. Have a good
All
one.
right. Thanks.